Tuesday. Welcome into First Take. Thank you so much for hanging with us. Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman.
What's up, baby? How you doing? How you doing? How you doing?
I'm great.
Floyd Mayweather told me to tell you what's up.
Oh.
I got a call from him last night after the debates, believe it or not.
Which debate? Ours or the debate?
The debate.
There you go.
You know?
I love it.
There we go.
Want to get into it?
Yes.
About last night, Monday Night Football from the Big Easy. The Falcons, Tevin Coleman rushed for 3 touchdowns. Matt Ryan passed for 2 TDs, and Deion Jones returned an interception 90 yards for a score to help the Falcons beat the winless Saints 45-32. The game was played nearly 10 years to the day after the Saints' memorable return to the Superdome on September 25th, 2006, 13 months after Hurricane Katrina. Stephen A., what was your takeaway from the Falcons win?
My takeaway was really nothing about the Falcons. I mean, obviously they went into New Orleans. That's not a place they're accustomed to winning too often. It's a heated rivalry. We can all respect that. You look at Devontae Freeman, you look at Matt Ryan, you know Julio Jones is on that squad. You know they have the capability to put up big numbers, Max. That's what you get. But it's especially relevant when you're going up against the New Orleans Saints. Because I think I don't want to sound sacrilegious here because Sean Payton's a Super Bowl champion. And we all know him to be a brilliant offensive mind who's innovative in his own right. And we know how I feel about Drew Brees. To me, he is everything. Without him, they're the Aints. They ain't the Saints. But even with him, they appear to be the Aints when you look at their, cumulative impact. They're 0-3 this year. They lost the opener to the Oakland Raiders 35-34. They lost to the New York Giants thereafter 16-13. And then they turn around and they lose to the Atlanta Falcons 45-32. So they've given up 45 and 35 points in 2 of their first 3 games. Their their defense is next to last. Their yards allowed is next to last. They rank 25 against the pass. They're dead last against the rush. And this is a recurring theme with the New Orleans Saints. I peel away from watching them last night something that is simple and plain as this. If we, and I'll ask this rhetorically, if we're going to look at a Rex Ryan, if we alluded to this about Jim Schwartz, that they were essentially glorified head coaches in the case of Schwartz, were in the case of Rex Ryan is, if you're a glorified defensive coordinator masquerading as a head coach, how come the same can't be said for Sean Payton as on offense? When you look at the New Orleans Saints, you're basically a glorified offensive coordinator disguised as a head coach. Now, we don't want to stick to that because obviously we're talking about Sean Payton here. He is a Super Bowl champion. Schwartz can't say that. Rex Ryan damn sure can't say that. So I'm certainly not trying to put Sean Payton in their class, in their category. But what resonates with me is the fact that we are now going on legitimately 3 years, arguably 4, where we're looking at the New Orleans Saints and we're saying, what the hell is wrong with your defense? Why can't you get it together? When Rob Ryan first arrived here, the defense was good and then the wheels came off and we really haven't been the same since Greg Williams departed. But you look at them defensively, and 1 year after another, they seem to be a problem on the defensive side of the ball. And one of the reasons why I'm so sensitive about it and relatively hyped about this, Max, is because the quarterback position is the most important position on a football field. You have an elite, perennial, all-pro who is unquestionably a future Hall of Famer in Drew Brees, and you're wasting away the best years of his career because you can't get him a defense. Now, it doesn't help that he's throwing pick sixes that are returned 90 yards. It doesn't help that he throws another fourth quarter interception to neutralize a drive after they were down 45-32. We get that Drew Brees is not perfect. But you talk about a guy that walks into a game saying, I've got to overcompensate because my defense is not going to make it to do it for me. The Giants game was an aberration. For the most part, giving up 35 in an opener against the Raiders, giving up 45 last night, is indicative and emblematic of what we have seen from the Saints defense in recent memory.
Real quick, the second interception was overturned.
Yes, it was.
Or it's just the Saints at home. I mean, before I even get to that, what's the takeaway from last night? There was a presidential debate. That's a takeaway.
Yes.
There was a very moving moment with Dee Gordon and the Marlins paying tribute to Jose Fernandez, where first he bats right-handed, just takes a pitch, and then turns around to his natural lefty position, hits a home run, the biggest home run of his career, crying as he goes around the base paths. That was big. Tevin Coleman and poaching Devontae Freeman's touchdowns for fantasy players, that was a takeaway.
Yep.
But you're focusing on Drew Brees.
That's right.
So I want to touch on the quarterbacks.
And Sean Payton.
Because I think you're actually focusing on the wrong quarterback.
Go ahead.
A couple of years ago, Matt Ryan seemed to be ascending to the elite quarterbacks, to that tier 1 group in the NFL, but then he kind of stalled at like a B+.
Okay.
He looked like he was going to become an A+, and he kind of stalled like a B+ quarterback in that next tier. So far this season, he looks like the ascension is continuing to first tier. Now, he has not played very good defenses, so he's putting up big numbers. But the quarterback story yesterday, I think, was Matt Ryan and what this means so far in the season. In terms of what you say about Drew Brees and the Saints, you want to be smart playing daily fantasy? Take all the skills position players, including the quarterback, either Drew Brees or the other guy, at New Orleans. Because that place is conducive to offense. It's a controlled environment, obviously, and the Saints don't play defense. The one time they haven't been involved in a high-scoring game was on the road with the Giants. Otherwise, Drew Brees at home is going to put up big numbers. It's an advantage, almost like Coors Field was to some hitters, especially before they tried the stuff with the humidifier and everything. But originally, when these guys would go from other teams, Dante Bichette, Larry Walker, and become, Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth somehow when they would hit at Coors Field, that's almost the effect that playing at home has on Drew Brees and that offense. That's an all-offense kind of place to play. Big numbers will always be put up there, but especially with that terrible defense in New Orleans. That's my takeaway. It's actually about Matt Ryan more than Drew Brees.
Let me tell you why I don't think it's about Matt Ryan, and I think you're wrong there. Matt Ryan, B+ that you threw out there, on the money. The most precise argument you've made since you started doing this show. I'm very proud. I'm very proud. I'm gonna tell you, I'm very, very proud of you, Max. But let me say, but let me tell you this. This same Matt Ryan has thrown for 4,500 yards plus the last 4 consecutive years. He's completed at least 66% of his passes over that same time frame. But the last 3 years, Max, 4, 12, 6, 10, 8, and 8. So even though you say it's about Matt Ryan, I'm saying to you, no, you're wrong, because it's always been about Matt Ryan, and look what has happened. So clearly it's not limited to him. I'm not questioning I don't want to say average, because he's not average. I don't think he's great. He's in between. The B+ grade that you gave Matt Ryan. I think it's consistent. I think he belongs on that level. He's a high second tier. That's what I would say. The problem has not been him with Atlanta. The problem has been what you've had around him. Now, Roddy White disintegrated before our very eyes, because years ago he was an absolute stud, particularly when they went 13-3 that year, and then I believe they lost to Seattle in the playoffs. If I remember, I'm not sure. I keep forgetting that one year where they lost. They went 13-3 in 2012. I think they beat Seattle, but I forgot who they lost to. Forgive me for that. I'll get back to that. The point that I'm trying to make to you, Julio Jones, he's been a stud, but Mike Smith coaching them at one time, their defense ebbing and flowing, not being consistent. The arguments that you make on behalf of Matt Ryan when you say it's just him, I'm saying to you, Matt Ryan has always been Matt Ryan. The problem has been the absence of help that he has received. This year, they seem to be moving in the right direction. They're 2-1. He's completing 70% of his passes. He only has 1 interception in 3 games. That's good.
7 touchdowns.
That's good. Well, I'm not
averaging 320+ yards a game.
Well, wait a minute now, because when we're looking at him right now, again, 300+ yards, because 970 yards, even though he only threw for 240 last night. 20 for 30 for 240. That's relatively pedestrian as far as I'm concerned. There's nothing great about 20 for 30
first of all, the strategy
right,
without White and without the distraction of the argument I should be getting more looks, Julio Jones was not really targeted a lot at all last night. In fact, the leading receivers were both out of the backfield. You look at he was throwing the ball basically to his running backs.
Being safe, which is smart on their part, because you're not turning the ball over, exposing your defense, who you may not have that much faith in. All I'm saying is, when you think about Matt Ryan or you think about the Atlanta Falcons, don't worry about Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's fine. It's the rest of the team. Whereas with New Orleans, Sean Payton, getting back to my point, Sean Payton, at some point in time, are we going to hold Rex Ryan accountable? When are we going to hold Sean Payton accountable for being on the offensive side?
The Super Bowl gives you some equity. No doubt about it.
2012 you're referring to, they went 13-3 and then lost to the Niners.
The Niners,
That's what it
yes,
was.
the Niners.
And the
exactly.
Saints used to be
Got it.
unstoppable at
They
home.
beat Seattle, lost to the Niners.
Lost 4 of their last games and won 11 in their last 15 there in the Superdome.
18-30.
Lost 11.
gonna play
Excuse
any
me,
defense
lost
this year.
11. Let's get this straight.
Molly, they
Lost
ain't playing
11.
any defense
Yeah.
this year.
The Saints? But I'm just saying, if it'll be the 3rd+ year we're saying that about Sean Payton. How do we get on? I get that he's got a Super Bowl and it gives you more equity. But at some point in time, my goodness, you're the head coach. Could you give us a defense, especially when you're wasting away Drew Brees' best years?